Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
Third Degree, the podcast is brought to you by El Matador and the El Matador Watch Party for Atlanta versus FC Dallas. That's this weekend, April 5th, 6:30 p.m. at downtown Dallas at the Scarlet Pumpernickel. Come on down. They got the entire second floor reserved, all the big TVs, full sound, bartender, amazing food. Typically plenty of street parking, lots of garages nearby. But of course, the Scarlet Pumpernickel is just 2 blocks from the Acosta Street Dart Station. So come on down to the Scarlet Pumpernickel and join El Matador supporting FC Dallas on the road at Atlanta United this weekend, 6:30 p.m.
Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fan. Welcome to another episode. This one is episode 305 of Third Degree, the podcast. He returns with my hat. It's Dan Crooke. You stole my hat.
Guten Tag, wie geht's? No, I did not.
We just happen to have the exact same hat. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the same hat that Dallas Trinity sent every media person in DFW.
Wait.
I didn't get one.
Wait, you're saying I wasn't special?
I bet your handwritten note is the same as mine.
I don't think I got a handwritten note.
Yeah, I got a note, but I didn't get a hat.
Travis brought me the hat when we had the 2 players on the show a few months ago. So it is a cool hat. And there's your hero, my hero, everybody's hero, editor, founder, thirddegree.net, and the original soccer influencer himself, but he doesn't have a hat. It's Buzz Carrick.
Oh, no, they gave me a t-shirt.
Oh, you got a t-shirt. Okay.
Yeah.
Got the t-shirt, yeah.
Maybe they listen when I said I don't wear hats.
Maybe. But you do wear hats. Oh, you wear a visor.
Not really.
I
wear a visor. Yeah.
You're a visor guy. That's right.
Or my 50-year-old don't want to get cancer sun hat. I wear that one when I go out to like a academy game.
Right.
I wear a hat in that scenario, but that's it though.
All right. Well, look at us here, boys and girls. It's a victory podcast as Dallas hosted the worst team in the league in Sporting Kansas City, and not only managed to come back from a one-goal deficit to win the game 2-1, but they also finished Peter Vermes, who was sacked today, as a matter of fact. We're recording this on Monday, so 2 days after the fact, he finally got the head chopped off that I think a lot of people were anticipating. Buzz, Dallas has 10 points. Things are looking good. Everybody, your breakdown, I thought you were very positive toned in all of this. And then I read Matt Doyle say that Dallas is getting all the gifts and that they're not very good. So who's right and who's wrong?
Well, it's probably something in the middle. Dallas has gotten some gifts, but not any more than anybody else, I don't think. But, we do need to tap the brakes a little bit. If you look at Dallas's 3 wins, they beat the 13th in the West team, Houston, without any DPs that they have since signed. They beat 11th in the West, RSL, missing Diego Luna. They beat 15th in the West, Sporting Kansas City, who immediately fired their coach. And then they tied Colorado, who's 4th in the West, and they've lost to the 4th in the East, Chicago, the 1st in the West, Vancouver. And both those were at home for Dallas. So we can tap the brakes a little bit on this whole, this is the best team in the West kind of talk.
Wait, somebody said that?
No, I'm exaggerating.
Oh,
but,
okay.
People are getting excited. And I'm sort of saying, okay, we need to tap the brakes a little bit in the sense of this is a middle of the pack team still, right? There are still deficiencies in the way they play. And there were some talk of the deficiencies in my breakdown that are still there. There are also some positives there. There's some things going in the right direction, some things to feel good about, some things that are happening in a proper build direction. But they still got some work to do. They still have some pieces to figure out. They still have some technical ways to figure out how they're going to play and solve some issues they have. So, I think we're past, is this a wooden spoon team, into the conversation of, is this team actually a playoff competitor? Are they going to be the sort of a legit team in the playoffs? Or I think we're still a long, long way from having any discussions at all that this team is looking to challenge for the top of the West. I don't think that's happening yet. Particularly when you, as I just did, you run through the teams who they've lost to and beat. It's not, they're only beating bad teams. They're not beating anybody any good.
Dan, you were at the press conference. I'm assuming you went down to the locker room, talked to some of the players. What's the general vibe after these games so far?
It was a good vibe after that one. The the players had music up incredibly loud. I got to be honest, I kind of waltzed in at the end and just talked to Martin Pars. But yeah, I mean, it seemed pretty upbeat given the last couple of games after that start to the season. Quill himself definitely seems a little bit better. He did have there was a weird mishap on the press conference. Someone forgot to turn the microphone on top of his usual habit of like putting the microphone in his chest and talking over it. So I don't know how much anyone that wasn't there actually caught. But
none of it would be the answer to that question. None. Or the last answer of the whole thing. I got the last answer. That was it.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of talk about it's always mentality, the importance of finding a way to win, growth in their mindset. Talked up Kansas City and Vermes. We talked last week. They've got an incredible attack. They're not putting it together. So yeah, I mean it's upbeat, but there's no running away and saying, "Oh, it's the best team in the world."
How do you, Dan? How do you feel how they're playing so far?
I mean, it's coming together. We're seeing Lucho Acosta start to kind of take charge of games, not just kind of drift out. Peter Vermes is getting less frustrated. The back line is slowly trying to figure out, when to go, when to stay, what each other are actually going to do. Hopefully, as that settles down more, and especially with the sixth position, that there'll be that little bit more consistency. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with the 8 Delgado right now, and then kind of how players come back as Show kind of picks up his involvement as he's got back into training, and a hopeful Paxton Pomacole return soon.
Yeah, from your mouth to God's ears. All right, so Buzz, I think the big highlight when we saw the starting 11 is that, lo and behold, Nolan Norris finally got his first start, and that was kind of fun to see.
Yeah, first at left back, at first under Quill, so that's exciting. There's a difference between players that are normal sort of players for me personally, and players I've been watching since he was 13 and admired since he was 13. He's always had a fascinating soccer brain. And I think you can see moments of that even in this game when he makes passes that other guys don't even try. Now, was it a perfect performance? No, not even close, but it was a solid performance for a guy making his first ever start at left back. And they clearly targeted him. They knew that was his first game, and they tried to go at him with a pacey player, which we all would have assumed might be a little bit of a problem for Nolan. He's not super fast. And he did well. I think he reads the game defensively well enough that he took care of that assignment and kept a good tight space. He only passed at, I think it was about a 75% clip, which is a little low for an outside back, but he also had 2 progressive passes, and I think it was 3 into the offensive third, which was more than anybody else on the defense had on the team. So, some deficiencies there and some positives there. Is he going to now start every single game and Marco Farfan never plays again? No, of course not. But I think it was a good enough performance that you'll see some minutes for him going forward. I'm sure that the coach will now say, there's a guy I can trust. And it's really important to get Farfan some time off, because Dallas has burned him out like 3 seasons in a row now. By the last 10 games of the year, he drops off big time because of his performance. So it's really important that Nolan be able to play games over there. And of course, at 20 years old, or whatever he is exactly now, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's time for him to progress and start playing more, and we want to see him involved more. And I, for one, thought that was a really good first left back game, since they've not trusted him to start him in left back until now.
And unbelievably, he did not get a yellow card.
He got one and did not get one. And then was it Quill that did? So that was, his coach got one and he didn't. It was like, oh, wow. Good job, Nolan. Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about wearing Farfan out. It does make me wonder, what are they going to do to try to limit Shaq Moore's minutes? Because now he's played every minute of every game so far.
Well, I've noticed that they're pushing hard with Newman at North Texas. They even on the Friday games still sent him to play, which basically like precludes him from being able to play again on Saturday. So obviously they're really pushing that scenario. So I would imagine that they are hoping they can get him up to enough speed that they can begin to give Shaq Moore a minute break too, because that theoretically is supposed to be the thing. You remember how excited they were when they drafted Newman. So we ought to be able to see him relatively soon. It would be really nice if they would do that too, because they're limiting the development of a couple other right backs they have coming through the system by Newman needing to play at North Texas as much as he is. I'd like to see him more developed by getting first team minutes than the minutes with North Texas.
And the opening goal was a byproduct of Shaq Moore turning off again at the far post.
Yeah, he's got a bad habit of drifting a little bit or losing focus on that outside wing. He was about 10 yards too tight this time, maybe trying to help. I'm not really sure. Obviously the relationship between him and Ibeagha is not there yet in that sense. Like if he thinks he needs to go help Ibeagha all the time, or if I don't know why he's switching off on that so much over there, because that particular back post has been a problem now 3 or 4 times. Obviously, hopefully it's something they're working on, but it continues to be an issue. I don't really have a solution for it other than those guys just got to play together more often, and Moore has to understand his responsibilities on the back post a little better. And it may just be that, like, he's not a kid, Shaq Moore. He's 28 or 29. So it's like, you're not going to change who he is. You just got to hope that he and Ibeagha can get, dialed in a little bit better and more on the same page there.
That one in particular was a little bit interesting because, Asaze Irigide's standing next to Nolan Norris. He's gone to support him. Ibeagha's then tucked up to Asaze's guy, and Shaq's come across to Ibeagha's mark. And yeah, it seems like if they're gonna get suckered out that way, there should have surely been a discussion of, like, this is kind of our defensive responsibilities. These are your marks. Is it zone or is it man to man? But you don't give Daniel Sawi 10 yards of space in the box. He's, that's his 10th goal against FC Dallas in all competitions. Like, he didn't need an invitation. Is
that the most goals by one player against Dallas that is actively playing?
It must be.
It has to be, right?
It certainly is. It was in the Kansas City notes that he was by far their number one scorer against Dallas. So, but as a proposition, I don't know. But that's a lot by one guy. But the Kansas City is, because they play FC Dallas fairly often. Like Johnny Russell had a lot of goals against FC Dallas too. So, like, there's a couple guys that have really killed them over the years from that one particular team.
Well, Dallas had been, the game kind of started the way the previous game started, where Dallas just continuously was pinned back in their own final third of the field, and Kansas City was dominating the game and really had the run of everything. The goal is scored, and then, not unlike we have seen Dallas do this season, is immediately just kind of find a very brief flare-up of, I don't even know how to describe it. It just suddenly everything clicks for them in these very small moments. And before we know it, in a span of about 2 minutes, they're up 2-1 after being down by a goal. And both, obviously the first goal is a tremendous gift by a bad back pass, but Dallas still has to finish it, because if you go back and watch the goal, Musa and Lucha Acosta are in the box by themselves with 5 Kansas City players, and they still manage to score the goal. And the second one is the long ball to Leggett, who does a really good job of just kind of winning his duel and getting the ball in the box. And the Leo Chu finish, who, by the way, up until that point, I had been making a lot of, why is he starting this game again? I don't understand what Leo Chu is doing or why anybody's excited about him. But he scored the goal, and it's 2-1, and there you go.
Yeah, the great on Lucha Acosta to pounce on that back pass. That was the play that got Doyle fired up about gifts. But he and Musa then carry it in from midfield and managed to get there. Those guys are so dialed into each other. That there's the quote from Musa about looking up and seeing Lucho and knowing he instantly had to pass it because he had trust in the guy. That's really nice. And then the over the top from Oz to Leggett was fantastic. And really on that play for me, like, this adjustment the last 2 games with this different shape, which has freed Leggett up to charge forward. He's not getting, it's cost him a little bit of progressive passing, but he's popping up in the offensive box big time. And so his shot creating actions have gone up. And obviously he had the assist on this one. That's a really exciting change that this tactic is allowed to happen. And you're right about Chu. I mean, the guy's game was non-existent other than that goal. He had, on FB Ref, he had 0 shot creating actions, 0 goal creating actions, which is funny because he scored, 0 progressive passes, 1 carry, 1 for 4 on take-ons, 0 passes into the penalty box, and 3 missed controls. It's like by any measure, he was brutally bad, and yet he scored. So
he was better last week when he was blowing out of his ass after 10 minutes.
Yeah, I look, and by the way he took the goal was really calm and measured, and he roofed it. He put it where he needed it to,
and honestly, he wrong stepped 3 defenders. They're all crashed in the box. He's the only one that reacted to that. So fair play.
My hope is that we've seen him now 2 games playing this inside off striker, and that's not his bit. Like, he's been a wide wing as far as I know, like his whole career, and certainly when he was in Seattle. So I'm hopeful that like he'll be a much more useful piece if they go back to a 4-3-3 wide wing scenario. But the last 2 games, you're right, Peter. The first one was better than this one, because this game, other than the goal, I thought he was, there's a reason why he got subbed earlier this game than he did the previous game.
Yeah. So Dan, I know a lot of people, especially in Buzz's Discord, got fired up over Matt Doyle talking about gifts and how many gifts Dallas has been handed this year. And you went back and kind of like sorted through all of that. Is Doyle right? Has Dallas been just getting a Christmas Day load of gifts?
No. No, that's rubbish. I had half an hour between meetings this morning, so I quickly jumped on YouTube and looked at every goal they've scored and conceded, and I think it was like they've had like 3 gifts. I can't remember if that included the red card against RSL or not, but they've given away more than they've got back. So there's no way that there's absolutely no way that Dallas is the team with the most gifts given in MLS. I can't remember who it is, but there's a team that's had 4 penalties in 6 games. Do you mean that's gifts?
If you're not watching every FC Dallas game intimately, it can be hard to just look at the stats and think this team is good, because they play, for lack of a better comparison, like Nottingham Forest. They sit way back in this block and they don't care about having the ball. This game, depending on which stat service you look at, they lost the possession battle 60-40 or 65-35. I mean, it was absolutely brutal. They lost the shot battle. They lost the shots on goals battle. The only battle they won was XG and actual goals. Actual goals, of course, being the only stat that really matters. So the quality of their chances they're creating is still really good. They're putting themselves in a good position, and they're outscoring the opposition. Now, they kept Sporting out of the box most of the time. The problem is, and I'm sure Daniel will probably get into this, the problem is that this is not sustainable long-term. This is a long-term issue they're going to have to address, because you can't get out-possessed by such a massive amount and let the other team have all those shots and win games overall season really quite easily.
I was going to say, mention like they are getting shots off and scoring. I think the stat I saw was that they have the fewest shots on target per goal in the league. So, the efficiency that we talked about a couple of years ago of like needing 12 plus shots for a goal. I mean, they're there. They're what we talked about a couple of years ago. It's just they've really got to make the rest of it work, and also the volume of chances just isn't there now. Yeah, I mean, I think they're in like the bottom third for shots in the league.
It's the volume of the opposition that's worrying, like, because you're not going to be able to keep everybody out of the box like you did Kansas City consistently with that much possession loss and that much pass loss. I mean, it was crazy.
So, just my observation, especially in the second half, is I understand the concept of not wanting the ball and trying to capitalize on other teams' mistakes. But man, Buzz, if somebody out there has access to this stat, and I know they don't do it in any of the MLS sites or FBref or anything like that, but I'm sure one of the more pay for stat analysis provides this, which is turnovers, unforced turnovers, forced turnovers. I just don't know if I can remember a Dallas team that turns the ball over as in the amount that this one does. Like, their inability to get out of their own half of the field has been a season-long kind of trait that is then capitalized by these kind of weird moments where they just suddenly start clicking, as I said earlier, and score a goal, which is largely 2 guys. It's Musa and Acosta.
Yeah.
And they seem completely dependent on that. So this feels very, very, you and I talk about having a catalog of 30 seasons to kind of run through and make comparison things like that. And I'm having a really hard time pinpointing where I think this season is going to, what category it's going to fall into.
Well, the closest we can get with the missed possessions and with the turnovers is would be like to look at like their overall passing percentages. But FERF does have missed controls and dispossessions, and Dallas is in right about the middle of the pack in those two stats in the league. I think that what's happening with Dallas in particular is that they have two really good guys that are really good on things like goals added and XGs and some of these advanced offensive metrics, and that's Peter Musa and Lucio Acosta. So you're looking at two guys up front that are carrying the massive load for this team. You take those two guys out, and the thing's going to be an absolute mess. We've looked at 2 games without Anderson Julio, who's the other guy that has provided some things. When he comes back, that'll obviously help quite a bit. So in some ways, if you're trying to think back to FC Dallas history, offensively speaking, this team reminds me of 2010, where it was David Ferreira or nothing, right? MVP, and Heath Pierce has talked about how this tactic was basically like everybody else plays defense. You get the ball and you kick it to David Ferreira. This is like that. Everybody plays defense. You get the ball, you kick it to Lucio Acosta. This is what's happening. So, and yet this Dallas team doesn't have 2010's defense, which is one of the all-time great defenses in the history of the league. So that's going to be the difference between these two teams, is why this team won't be top of the table. It'll be middle of the pack because the defense is just not anywhere near good enough. But this is year 1. So hopefully they're going to have all these things to work on and try and improve. The limitation of this current formation, and again, Anderson Julio will help. But right now, because you're playing 2 guys right up the middle, Musa and Lucio Acosta, and you don't have any more wings, right? Because the third player, Leo Chu's done nothing. So you don't have any wings. Your only outlet is to those 2 guys, right up the middle and long. You no longer have those wide outlets that are really helping you. And so the last 2 games, Dallas is even more one-conventional than they were before. Yeah. But yet, some things look better. Like Ramiro as this single pivot, he can now just stay at home and just sit in there. It actually has helped Dallas be better defensively by having that guy right in front of the center backs and not moving, and they know where he's going to be. And being able to have Leggett and the other 8 actually burst forward and be the extra player and surprising people in transition, and yet able to get back and park in next to Ramiro and stabilize that 3 in front of the back. So work in progress.
So after, and it's way too early for me to ask this stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Yep. After 6 games, Buzz, is this a playoff team?
Yeah. But you remember we all talked about our prediction in the preseason that what do we all pick? 6th, 7th, and 8th, the 3 of us, for where we finish. Those are playoff teams. Not 7th, 8th, 9th argument about whether that's playoffs or not aside. 6th, 7th, 8th is a playoff team, right? That bandwidth. So yeah, I think it's a playoff team. I think it holds up like it is right now. You have some chances to get some guys healthier. You have some chances maybe to add something, but so does everybody else. So
where do you think the seeds of it improving in terms of some sort of rhythm and structure of building an attack that isn't just simply booting the ball along to 1 or 2 guys? Because that's what it feels like now, as you said. It's literally just figure out how to get the ball to Lucho and go from there. And
that's why I made the Nottingham Forest comparison, because that's kind of the way. I mean, I don't watch Forest a ton, but I've seen a little bit of this.
I think you're being very, very unkind to Nottingham Forest. They're 3rd of the Premier League and in the FA Cup.
They're a much better defensive team than Dallas, but the idea is the same. That 35% possession was what I was talking about, and then the verticality and get forward quickly. Obviously, Nottingham Forest is way better than FC Dallas. I was just talking about the style. We're talking about style. That's what we're talking about. So,
Well, hold on. I think that's okay. But see, Forest has something that Dallas doesn't, and even if you just kind of like equal out the quality of the players, Dallas doesn't have 2 guys that can play wide and attack. I mean, Nottingham Forest isn't tied to 1 guy. They got 3 or 4 guys in attack that they can depend on.
Right.
And that's where I think as I watch this, I get a little bit concerned because Patrickson doesn't appear to be doing a ton of anything. We had this really magic moment from Leggett, who is better when in moments.
Right.
But again, it all feels very disconnected and a little bit desperate.
That's the answer to the question of how you get better. Quill, I think from listening to him talk, I think he wants to play 4-2-3-1. I don't think he wants to play the way he's playing now. He's doing that because of the profiles he has available. So the answer to that question is if you can get back to 4-2-3-1, then you have two wings out wide. Maybe you have Lucho right underneath as a 10. But you only have one wing right now. You only have Anderson Julio, and he was even gone for a couple of weeks, right? So you get him back. There's one wing. You don't have another good wing. Like all three guys you've tried, or even four guys, Bernie, Leo Chu, Logan Farrington, Pedrinho, none of those guys are performing like Anderson Julio is. So until you get that other wing sorted, it's going to be hard to go back to 4-2-3-1, take off the 8 and bring on the extra wing. So until you get a player who can exceed Ramiro as the 6, a guy who can play, because like the reason it's working with him as a 6 now is because he sits in there as that single. He's not required to run everywhere, and the other two guys drop in, right? You have to be able to have a guy in there in a double pivot that can cover sideline to sideline and have that other 6-8 with him release forward. So that's how you get better. Like that 6 has to become. Now, is that the new guy? Is that Kaique? Is it Show playing as a 6? I don't know what it is, but that's what's missing in terms of being able to go back to the other formation is the wing and the 6. If Paxton gets healthy, if Show comes back and plays really well, or is a real 6, if there's lots of ifs still here, right? If Moore can get his defense sorted out, if they can go add a center back and bring up and get an upgrade on Ibiaga, perhaps. I mean, those are the ways you can get better and get forward. But I really think most of all, you're right, because the current formation leaves those two guys, Lucho and Musa, on an island. I want to see this new formation with Anderson Julio instead of Leo Chu and see what that does. That might help a lot. And then we'll kind of go from there after that. I mean, not we, the coach will, but we'll talk about it and we'll see what we think about it. With Anderson Julio in there instead of Leo Chu might make a big difference.
You mentioned Kaique, who did get his debut, and I instantly, if he had just had blacked out boots to go along with his tucked-in shirt, I may have had an instant man crush there on the spot.
You get Tedek vibes, were you?
Yeah,
he has the longest shorts in history.
Does he?
No, I thought he was wearing them a little high. They looked a little short to me.
They were very high, but I mean, it just
He's
seemed
got
like he took
legs,
some tracksuit pants and just hemmed them.
It's like watching Michigan.
So, did anybody have about 30 seconds into his debut, holy crap, he's going to get a red card really quick if he doesn't turn it down a few notches?
Yeah, it looks to me like a guy that was like, went out in the field and said, holy crap, this is fast. This is not what I'm used to.
He snapped into a tackle almost instantly, and I thought, oh, okay, here we go. The kid is off.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like a little raw. I mean, obviously, like we knew that was going to be some rawness, but probably more rawness than I would have expected. Probably be a little longer before he's going to be ready to go than we maybe had hoped. We're looking at a dose of Ramiro probably, unless the only other 6 they have really. Nolan's going to be is now left back, obviously. So you're hoping that Show can be sort of a passing left 6. That's about it. Otherwise, I mean, I don't know what you're going to do because that kid's not going to – I don't think that kid will be ready based on the 20 minutes I saw or 10 minutes or whatever it was, because maybe that's first game panic, but it definitely was like, holy crap, this is moving,
Yeah, I didn't see anything that was – I mean, I didn't – it wasn't Edwin Giassi out there bad. It wasn't even bad. It was just, okay, he's clearly very young and
yeah.
I will say the one thing that he did really well is his recovery pace. Like his willingness to – hustle and cover a lot of ground in recovery was immediately noticeable. Give him some time. But I also think it's probably our responsibility to, temper expectations.
Yeah.
Dallas is making a big deal about signing this guy, but there's a reason why he was playing in the league he was playing in, and he's just a kid. And if he suddenly showed up here and was MLS starting quality, that'd be the greatest scouting job of all time in the history of the league. And that's just not how this is going to go.
When players come into the league, there's obviously a transition period, but they're also leaning on their experience. That was his second top flight professional game ever.
I know.
There's no experience to fall back on to say, okay, I've just got to adjust my pace a little bit. There's less time on the ball. The press is a little stronger. It's a whole new environment.
He was like an overly excited golden retriever puppy out there.
Yeah, you just needed some water there for him to jump into. It would have been great.
I'm sure he's going to be fantastic. All right.
Well, yeah, but the point is it won't be instantly.
No.
You're looking at that, you can be like, okay, let's give the kid some chance. Let's give him some time.
But the problem is, if Ramiro gets hurt, they don't have anybody to turn to. And I think that's the thing about this particular signing that is curious, which is what, the way they are presenting him as an addition to this club versus how we all realize the reality of how long it's going to take him to turn into being MLS starting quality. I feel like two very different things. So while I'm hopeful he turns into a kick-ass, player, it's the next Grazo, he's just not going to happen in the next few weeks or months.
Plus, we're used to a $4 million player being a guy who walks in and starts. So Brian Acosta, Carlos Grazo, that's the price tag of, that's what was it, top 4 signing of all time for FC Dallas? Top 5?
Oh, something like that
for sure. So that money and then the hype of him and the way they've been talking about it on the socials and whatnot, it's like, oh, this is gonna be great. Kid's coming right in, and it's like, even PR guys were like, "Oh yeah, this kid's gonna play right away." It's like, okay,
But they said he'd get minutes right away, which he has.
Oh, I got more stronger than that.
Oh no, everyone I spoke to in the team was like, "No, he's not starting."
There you go.
Okay. Well, he costs more than Enes Sali, so
and he's already done more.
That's true.
Fair.
He has already done
6 touches more. Yeah,
and an acrobatic clearance.
I hope tucking your shirt in becomes a team-wide kind of bit they all do. That's a good look. I like it. So Martin Paz was back. Were you surprised he got the start, Buzz?
No, you asked me that last week, and I said, no, put him right in. There's no question. Martin Paz is top, in the discussion for best keepers in this league, top 5, top 10 for sure, top 5. The guys, the broadcast were talking about it too, like what a great keeper he is. So
It was funny based on the conversation we had last week about Colodey's willingness to come out and catch balls. There was a moment in, I think it was the first half, where a cross came across the box, and instead of calling his center back off of it, he let him head it away out for a corner, and Martin could have come out and just grabbed it and caught it, and he didn't. I was yelling at the TV.
Yeah, his 2 weaknesses are his feet and crosses. So it's like,
He did go for one in the second half, which was a little surprising.
Yes, he came out and punched one out for a throw-in in the second half, and I kind of gave a little fist pump there. But
actually, I was talking to him after the game about all that, so time pending, I'll try and put something on the blog, kind of about the, how he prepared and, got ready, spending 50 hours on planes over the last couple of weeks, how he was able to...
Did he happen to, by chance, tell you how many miles he traveled?
I worked out to 24,000.
Goodness gracious. That is ridiculous. That's literally almost circumventing the globe in one trip.
That's half a gold status on American from one trip.
But the crazy part is you think about even the qualifying games, playing in Australia and then in Indonesia. That's an 8-hour flight in itself.
Yes.
And that's the short leg.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't thought about that.
They were talking about, I was reading an article. Somebody wrote an article kind of adding up the players in the Premier League that traveled the most. And they were talking about how some of these players traveled over 20,000 miles because they were having, I guess Chris Wood, for example, had to go down to New Zealand and they had a game in, not the Bahamas, whatever other, island nation they had to fly to Dan's point. It was a ridiculous amount of miles those guys had to travel. And then, of course, he ended up getting injured. But speaking of Nottingham Forest, but there you go. So, it was nice to have Paz back. And I did think he did a good job at the end of the game as Kansas City just kept dropping bombs in. And while Dallas was good at clearing a lot of it, there were a couple of moments there where Paz was in the right place at the right time. So credit to him.
And the most important thing, today I saw that he's in a Home Depot advert discussing toilets.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, there's a huddle, him, Alejandro Bedoya, Jordan Morris, and I can't remember who from Colorado, but huddling with this couple about their choice of toilet.
I could see Martin going home after that day in his hotel room on the WhatsApp, chatting with his supermodel girlfriend. Hey, I did a toilet commercial today in an American hardware
But he
chain.
had a speaking line, so, get that IMDb profile up.
Awesome. Super hot. So Dallas goes on to win the game 2-1. They're up to 10 points. Would you say they're in 8th, 7th place now, Buzz, in the West? Did you say?
I didn't say.
I have it up right here.
Place.
They're in 7th place with 10 points, ahead of Los Angeles FC and tied with Portland on 10 points. But they're also a mere 3 points out of first place, which is ridiculous to think about.
I really like that you had to specify LAFC as opposed to the winless LA Galaxy.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy that we are 6 games into the season and there are 5 MLS teams: Toronto, Montreal, the Galaxy, Houston, giggle, snicker, giggle, and Sporting Kansas City, all without a single win all season. That is quite bananas. Okay, so I guess the point is that, Dallas has gotten the job done. They've come back from deficits. In fact, Dallas was I didn't know how to take this. The tweet the team put out about having more points collected from losing positions. Is that a good thing to brag about? I can't figure out if that's a good thing to brag about.
Well, they're all in on this, warrior dogs mentality bit this year. This whole
I'm too old. I don't get the dog thing.
I think it's just fighting the dog or something, that whole fighting back, coming back. I mean, I like that mentality.
How about not going down a goal to start with? Isn't that a novel concept?
But we know that Dallas doesn't have a good defense. The defense is going to be bad all year. So it's like, it's okay that actually.
So this is the club acknowledging that their defense sucks and they're going to have to dog it to collect points this season. Is that how we're doing this?
The job is to spin everything into a positive light. So, I mean,
of course. Yeah. Okay.
But that does mean, wow, really crappy starts. But how many seasons have we talked about FC Dallas leading the table for most points lost from a winning position? So it's nice to be on the other side of that for once.
Well, certainly having the ability to come back from being in a losing position is a nice trait to have. Now, if you could just stop being in losing positions, it'd be really good. Just get that defense cleaned up.
Last year in those same losing positions, it was, shit, this is going to be 4-0. Now it's, whoa, there's a chance. Oh, my God.
I look forward to the team having a better home record than road record. That'll be a thing when that happens.
Yeah, that is a quirky one for sure. All right, so Dallas, anything else about the Kansas City game? As we mentioned, Peter Vermes ended up getting sacked from Kansas City, which is a big deal in this league. He was the manager that had been around the longest. And whether you like the guy or not, or whether or not you want to debate whether he looks like Herman Munster or Hellboy, it really isn't important to me. But he is an important figure in the history of this league, both as a player and a manager. And it's a pretty significant moment. I mean, he's kind of their Tom Landry, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
And so, them finally getting around to the point where they felt like they hadn't won a game since the last calendar year. I think, what are they on, a 15-game losing streak, Buzz, or winless streak?
Boy, 13.
It was long.
13 games since September.
So I'm not a particular Peter Vermes fan or anything, but I also want to acknowledge his importance to that club and to this league, and it'll be interesting to see where he goes.
They were pretty good for a long time, and they won a bunch of Open Cups with him in charge.
Yeah, they won the league too.
Yeah.
Can I give you a really important stat?
Please.
Eric Quill was the player that Vermes assisted on his last scoreboard mention in his playing career. Eric Quill was also the guy that put the bullet in his management career.
I guess that's probably true. Quill can add that to his resume. So Dallas end up winning the game, as I said, 2-1 in front of a packed house at Toyota Stadium. By the way, I can't remember when we did the podcast last week. Was this before or after the stadium presentation?
That was before.
So we haven't talked about the stadium presentation or the stadium doohickey they did event.
No.
All right. Not that anything great went on there, but anyway, the project has begun. Tearing down will start soon. There you go. We're underway. So next up for Dallas is a road trip to Atlanta to the Robots' anus. You all knew I was going to say it. At 6:30 on the Apple TV. Dan, you are our official opponent previewer.
They're an interesting bunch. They actually just won their second game of the season on Saturday. Come from behind 4-3 win at home to New York City. Other than that, it was a win against Montreal on opening day. They have only had one game so far this season where they've conceded fewer than 2 goals, which was a goalless draw with New York Red Bulls. So if FC Dallas scores a goal, that's, there's the odds are in their favor. Preseason focus, obviously, Emmanuel Latte-Lath. He's got 5 goals right now. He's the only player on more than 1 goal. He is kind of the beginning, end, and middle of that team. Miguel Almiron returned. He's been kind of cast off to the right wing. They had a little bit of a weird moment. I think half-time they had to take off Bartosz Lish from centre midfield, which made Ronny Delia kind of shuffle the team and put Almiron back in that kind of familiar 10 spot. So they did then immediately concede 2 goals, but they also scored 2 goals. So it's going to be it'll be interesting to see what they do, how injuries do affect it, because they haven't really had the laundry list of injuries that Vancouver had, that Colorado had, that Dallas has had to a degree. They also do lead MLS in the most defensive errors recorded with 8 in 6 games, which is an incredibly impressive number compared to FC Dallas's 1. It's another one of those teams. So it's going to be a 4-3 one way or another.
It sounds like roller coaster season versus roller coaster season.
Yeah, and they are a team. They really get the ball down, run it into the box. I say high scoring. They've scored more and conceded more than FC Dallas, but they're sort of top 3rd in the league in shots on target, all the kind of attacking stats other than actually putting the ball in the net. So yeah, it's going to be a siege mentality, I guess, for that back line.
This is a thing that to consider as we go forward over the course of the season, is to never forget the sort of macro idea that last year Dallas was basically the right around on 0 goal differential. And we talked about going into the season, like if you want to be a playoff team, you need to get up to a positive like 8, 9, 10 in goal differential. So when you're talking about the volume of goals being really high, both scored and allowed, just remember that context. Remember that over the course of the season, it's okay that the team's giving up more goals as long as they keep scoring more goals. And if you look at these other teams you're playing against, and you talk about Atlanta's done worse on both, well, their goal differential is worse than Dallas's. That's why they're a little bit lower in the standings than Dallas's is. So, it's a silly 10,000 foot stat, but it really can be quite telling over the course of a season. And since the goals is at the end of the day, the only thing that actually matters, because that's how you win games, score goals.
So, Buzz, are you anticipating we'll see any kind of different lineup this weekend?
Well, Anderson Julio, I think, is an obvious one now that he's got his green card. Last week, he got back, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it was. He only got like 1 day of training, and that was deemed not enough. So he'll be in there, I would assume, since Leo Chu's getting worse game by game. I think you want to keep the same tactic because it's working for now, and unless Anderson Julio coming back makes Quill think, oh, look, now I can go back to multiple wingers. Maybe, but when you're on a multiple game win streak, I don't think you change that much. You kind of leave it the same other than the one guy. Maybe there's some question about who the other 8 is, but we haven't even seen Showcaf Umana even get a minute off the bench yet. Like, that terms of like that game fitness and getting him back in action. Like until he sort of cracks the field at all, it's going to be probably difficult to predict that he's going to start, even though I keep wanting him to, because I'm not the biggest Delgado fan. So, Paxton's a ways away yet. So I don't think Diego Garcia is ready for that either. So not a lot of choices. I don't think from Kaike's 16 minutes that he's ready to come in for Ramiro. Did Nolan do enough to keep left back? Probably not. Probably go back to Farfan there, I would think.
Well, I think as well, you've potentially got the matchup with Almiron, so you definitely want as much experience as you can get there.
Yeah, fair. So, there really isn't when you won a couple in a row. There's no cause as a coach to like pushing for change. I think that Quill really wants to go back to the other formation, but until you get your midfield sorted, until you get a second wing sorted, I really don't think there's any reason to, particularly because your defense has allowed less goals in this shape too, with having Ramiro sitting in and having those 8s dropping in. That part has worked, so it's kind of in an if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of vibe, especially because it's getting those results on the road too, is this formation has worked. So, Anderson Julio would be it for me. That would be all I would change.
All right. Anything from you, Dan, in terms of anticipations of lineup or players?
No, I think the team in some respect picks itself in the situation right now. So there's only those couple of talking points that Buzz had.
Dallas has used the second fewest players in the league. It was going into this game, it was 18, so Nolan makes 19. So like Quilts has talked a lot about wanting his positions to all be in competitions. That clearly isn't the case with this roster right now. He's pretty locked into what he, first choice at this point, even though he would like to have it not be that way. It obviously is that way.
Yeah, for sure. A couple of other notes that I meant to mention about the Kansas City game. I looked it up because when I saw that Vermes had been fired, I thought, man, I feel like Dallas has been that team a lot in the history of this club. And so I did a little bit of research, and to the best of my count, Vermes now makes Dallas's count of 4 of being the opponent last faced up against a guy before he got sacked. And so I have it down as twice for Colorado. People don't remember this, but the Colorado manager back in 96 got fired on a bad run after playing Dallas. And then Mastriani was the other one. And then whoever was managing Orlando got the boot after playing Dallas, and now Peter Vermes.
Because that was the weird streak, is Armand was the last person to talk to Mastriani and the Orlando coach at the time before they got fired.
Does hiring Oscar Perea away from Colorado, does that count as a 1-2?
Maybe. I don't know.
Is that a 5th?
But here's the crazy part. Dallas is kind of middle of the pack on that. New England has been the opponent before a guy gets fired 7 times.
That's amazing.
Isn't that crazy? That is nuts. So that's a funny stat. The other thing that happened during the broadcast, I don't know if you guys picked up on it. Mark Rogandino said something about, he was talking about a player, and he said, he's in his second season wearing it for the Hoops. And I thought, wait, who is he talking about on Dallas?
I know.
And I was like, oh crap, he's talking about Kansas City, who's now stolen and maximized the hoop design, and now everybody considers them the Hoops. He literally called Kansas City the Hoops.
Well, that's funny because he's called FC Dallas Hoops for years, even though when they haven't worn them in a while.
I know.
He just loves that nickname.
On the subject of jerseys, I know like we talked a lot about the color of the FC Dallas away jersey, whether it's like blue or gray. That Kansas City jersey in person is not the blue that they've had for many years. No, it's really pale and gray in person.
Huh. Well, it looks pretty blue on television.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The jersey pisses me off because it's hoops.
Which is, I mean, that's the opposite of the FC Dallas one. It looks pretty blue in person, but on TV it just looks white.
I don't like them wearing the same color shorts as the shirt. I wish it was the darker blue in the shorts in that kit.
That would be cool.
I thought that's what they had prior to this. I didn't think they were wearing light blue.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Huh. All right. We'll do a little more kit talk before the end of the pod because there's lots of kit drama going on in that neck of the woods.
Before we run off on sporting, we should mention that Ozzy Urguide had a really great game defensively. We kind of glossed over that. He was, other than a great outlet pass, defensively, he was a monster. Lots of people have noticed that. So, what a great sign that's from a guy we had no clue what he was going to bring. What a great signing.
I got to say, I also feel like Ibby had a really solid game. Ibby got himself in some good positions, covered some ground, shielded some balls out. I don't think Shaq Moore had a particularly good game. Shaq Moore spent a lot of the game apologizing to his teammates. I stopped counting at the number of 5 of seeing him on TV throw his hand up. I'm sorry. I apologize. But I thought Ibby had a really strong game for Ibby, but Urguide is one of the best signings Zanata has made for this club.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's no question. Yeah, whoever did the in-person scouting on that guy did a really great job. I mean, some of the things that like on tape were a little bit alarming, like the super aggressiveness of getting forward and chasing a striker and then hitting the guy. Like some of that stuff is still there, but it's not nearly as bad as it looked like it was going to be on tape. And mostly he contains himself, and he usually gets back really quickly in a hurry when he does do that. So, and he actually had one really awesome run forward where he went out a couple different guys and got forward and did some good things.
Until the last defender's touch got away from him.
Of course.
He's had that little run in him in just about every game so far. I mean, it's nice to see that little bit of link-up play, that it's not just all get it through Ramiro and hope that he makes the pass.
We should also talk about how impressive Lucio Acosta is with the 75-75 club. But that puts him in an insanely elite category. I looked at Jason Christ, by the way, 74 assists. That's why he's not in that club.
Is that what his career ended on, was 74?
Yeah. Regular season, 108 goals and 74 assists. So he's one goal off that club. Not that he's not, hallmarked for many other things, but he's probably at home going, oh man, one assist. Yeah. Because I was like, where's Jason Christ on this list? No, one goal off.
But I mean, that's a pretty cool list, right? Landon Donovan, Jaime Moreno, Dwayne De Rosario, Diego Valeri, Preki, Steve Ralston, and Lucho.
It's an amazing list, yeah. People probably don't know Steve Ralston, man. That dude was an absolute peak of his game, national team player when MLS started. So he's off the radar for a lot of people, but the guy was an absolutely phenomenal player.
It was funny when Rogan Dino and Heath were talking about that list, and they mentioned the name Preki. It dawned on me the percentage of people watching this game that have no idea who Preki is and how awesome Preki was.
So good.
Dan, how familiar with Preki are you?
Okay, this is what I was going to say. For his soccer, not massively. For the whole Jason Davis, where is Preki thing he's missing, a lot.
Oh, okay. Yes. The only thing I can tell you is it was the most left-footed MFer in the history of the sport. And
more than
didn't
Messi?
Make any difference. Oh my gosh, yes. 10 times more left-footed than Messi. And you still couldn't stop him. It was the most ridiculous skill set with 1 foot. It was really quite remarkable. And he was maddening to watch and a lot of fun to watch all at the same time. So it was
Came
fun
out
to
of
hear.
the indoor game. If I remember correctly, it was a pro and indoor before MLS got going, and one of the great naturalized U.S. national team players, really.
It's just like he's gonna go to his left. Like I think at one point the Inferno actually had a Preki song that included just cover his left or something like that. Dustin will remember that song. I don't remember what it was.
From so deep. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah. Even more so than De Rosario. I mean, just bombs from way outside.
Those were the good old days. All right, so Dallas, there you go. We talked that up really good. Let's see. Let's move on. Trinity had a chance to capitalize on their good run of late, but they went on the road to Carolina and got waffle stomped 3-0.
Yeah, Carolina was the team right above them in the standings. Unfortunately, I can tell you nothing about this game, but I have to say this, and that's because this is the single worst display of camera work I have ever seen in my entire life. It was so bad, it made me sick. I had to turn it off. I was about to puke watching this thing. And listen, this is what I do. I am telling you, this was an absolutely brutal performance. And the worst part is, like, within like 2 seconds, I'm like, this person's never done this before. And I'm like, why is the director not talking to them and fixing it? Because it went on and on and on and on of them trying to figure out how to do it. And
it wasn't one of those AI cameras?
No.
Robot cameras?
No, you can tell by the way it's moving, it's not AI. And the way it adjusted because if it was an AI camera, the like how wide it is would have stayed the same. It was like the first 5 minutes or so, it's like literally the entire field in one camera and like 30 rows of stands, like as wide as you can imagine. Oh, no. And all the drags are completely open. So the camera is not slowly sliding side to side. It's jerking and moving and going. That's off. And then, so they're like, clearly after like 10 minutes, somebody finally says, no, you need to go tighter. So they zoom in to like a shot of like 2 people. And then they try and follow 2 people on the ball, like super without any ability or skill, and also the loose drag, so it's all jerking and moving. Like I could not watch it. It was so bad. And the thing that was making me the most disgusted mentally, despite the fact that I wanted to puke, was that if you're directing a professional sport level, you have a meeting earlier in the day with your cameras to tell them how you want to shoot it, right? Even if they've never done it before, you can explain it to them. And if they tell you, like, I've never done it, which they would do, or within 10 seconds, or like the little bit you might practice before the game, you'll be able to tell they've never done it. So you immediately start coaching them. You don't let it go for 15, 20 minutes of puking everybody out. This is the worst I've ever seen. So I turned it off. So I couldn't even tell you why Trinity stunk.
Is that Vista that produces all of those?
Yes. So like it's possible the director's not on site. I get all that, but there's still communication.
Higher Buzz.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was so bad. Listen, I've directed games where the camera guy's never done it before, and you coach him in before the game. And then instantly as the game starts, you start tweaking and adjusting and you help them out and you fix it. You don't keep going with puke cam. It was so awful.
So what you're saying is it was filmed like a parent at a youth game just trying to focus solely on their child.
Yeah. Or Uber wide to get the whole stadium.
Honestly, that could have actually been the case.
Yeah. I mean, it's entirely possible. It's like some team employee tried to step in and do it. Someone that has never worked TV. Oh yeah, I could run a camera. No, stop. It's so bad.
Well, they lost, and it was a 6-pointer because, as you said, the team in front of them was who they were playing. So that sucks. So North Texas had a game, and they dropped one, and they were up 3-1. Buzz, what happened?
Late game meltdown. Listen, here's a positive. Tark Scott had a brace. That's good. We like seeing that. I'm continuing to be mystified by Anthony Ramirez as a 6, which is like playing Pedrinho as a 6. I don't get it. Ian Charles was out, who's been playing center back for them, and then it's playing 6 for them. So like an actual 6, an actual center back. So like they had to use a 17-year-old who's not really a center back at center back. They defensively just broke down, and they didn't have any defensive choices to come in because the other center backs are hurt, and they don't really have any other defensive mids that were available to come in and sort of spell stuff. So they just couldn't do what SC Dallas did. They couldn't hold them out. They couldn't keep them from coming back and tying the game up. And then they ended up losing the shootout. So some of this is, of course, just the pains of having young kids when you're learning process and all that kind of stuff. Some of it is, having a couple of injuries really hurt them. So it's not, the simple fixes are basically just to get people back and get them in the right positions. And I think that'll help a lot. But again, it's never not a learning moment from the game. And so the big takeaway, of course, is Tark's got braced. That's exciting. We want to see that guy get back to FC Dallas and scoring, not scoring, but playing, and hopefully scoring.
All right, stop. Pause for a second, because did you say they lost in the shootout?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What they're doing, they don't do ties in Next Pro?
Peter, they have not for 3 years.
Wait, do they do 35-yard run-up shootout?
No, sorry, kicks from the spot.
Come on. No. If you're gonna do, you at least gotta do the run-up. You gotta do the real. You can't call it a shootout if you're standing on the spot like a flower.
Yeah,
come on.
They want to not have ties, and they want to try and they consider it good practice. But the thing is, it's like I do remember it seriously that because it's not. The game's not on the line. It's not a real goal. It's like afterwards, and nobody cares. So it doesn't get taken seriously.
Do they change the point value if you lose or win in shootout?
Yeah, if you win the shootout, you get an extra point. So it's like 3-2-1, like hockey. 3-2-1-0.
Okay. All right. So there you go. And then Texoma had their second game of the season. They're the new kids on the block. Everybody might be nice to them. They lost to Westchester SC 3-1. Is Westchester also an expansion USL 1 team?
Yes. Yeah. And that was the game maybe you thought you could get. Texoma got their first ever goal. The attendance fell off down to about 1,300, which is normal. The second game, you expected to drop off. 1,300 is still more than I was expecting them to actually draw. So that's pretty good. I think, and I've now seen them play 3 times. I only watched the highlights of this one, but this is at least the third or fourth formation I've seen them run out, including scrimmages. So they're obviously still trying to find themselves and find their team. They announced a whole lot of signings really late. So I don't think they have an identity yet. I don't think they know what they're doing yet and haven't figured themselves out yet. Diego Peppy was missing, but they did get their first goal. So their best midfielder got a red card at the end of the game. So that's not good. I think they may go on the road next, but they're struggling to put it all together. Expansion team, we'll give them time, but right now it's not great. Not great up there yet.
I didn't know that there was a team up in Westchester County, which is the beautiful county just north of New York City. My wife and I lived in Westchester when we were working in New York City in the early 90s. That's crazy.
Just call it White Plains.
Well, they're playing in Mount Vernon.
Is that where the Mount Vernon is? Is that the same place?
No. It's one of the quaint little towns in Westchester County. And they play at a place called the Stadium Memorial Field in Mount Vernon, which I think is a stadium for a college. That's up there. I think.
And that's, of course, next to the beautifully named Tuckahoe.
What?
I don't know what that is.
That's a city next to Mount Vernon.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Spell that?
Today I learned.
Literally the same as if you were to say tuck a hoe.
I don't think that's how they pronounce it.
That doesn't matter.
I think if
This
I remember
isn't
correctly,
the podcast of pronunciations.
no, I agree. Yeah, absolutely, it's not. But in living there, I don't remember a Tuckahoe, New York. They had some weird spelling, like Indian named towns up there with funny pronunciations and things like that.
My exposure up there was Connecticut with the aptly named Danbury. So,
Yes. All right. Anyway, I digress. Go back to the run sheet that Buzz has kindly written for us in red crayon, and I think we have come to its completion.
Well, that might be a controversially orange crayon.
Yes, thank you, Dan. That was perfect seg to the final portion of tonight's podcast, which is Kit Talk. So I don't know how to go through this, Dan, because you're kind of the expert, but we have been running under the premise that MLS is going to have third jerseys for clubs this season. Dallas is one of them. We have an idea of what we think that third jersey looks like. And then lo and behold, a couple of weeks ago, Footy Headlines, which is always kind of the leader in the clubhouse in terms of where people go to for their kit rumors, started running around with the noise that not only is Dallas getting a kit in a color that is different from what we think it's going to be, but it's going to be here like tomorrow. And now they seem to be reversing course on that. So catch everybody up, please.
Well, they started saying a few things that didn't match up to information that we'd heard. Mainly, playing in a color orange, having a burn-themed jersey that has the horse and the bull, which doesn't really
That was
make
my
a lot.
favorite note.
FC Dallas isn't very good at branding, but even still, that's they wouldn't do that. They were adamant of this April 4th release date, and this was going to be the third kits. It started with 5 teams, it went up to 12. Now it's the whole league. Everyone that I've spoken to has said no, that's absolutely not happening, and they're really confused where the orange has come from. I did hear a theory that maybe they're getting information from an Adidas source that's foreign, and maybe they confused FC Dallas with Houston.
Okay, but here's the ointment. Here's the fly in the ointment, which is last week on one of the, I don't remember which sporting good website it was, going on sale is a new FC Dallas hat where the logo is essentially that Brushes Sands orange color that Footy Headline was telling us the jersey's going to be in.
So yeah, I did see that, and it really is. It does look orange. That is the jersey hook hat that they do every year, and that in theory relates to the away jersey, the not quite blue, not quite grey one. The other ones in the league are all a much closer match to the actual jersey. I don't have an explanation for that. And the whole April 4th thing's really confusing because the club have said it publicly. The third jersey they're getting, the burn-themed third jersey, is getting released in July. It's not coming out on April 4th.
Yeah,
so
it's been very confusing.
Dan, isn't that logo on that hat, that colorized logo that's on the new secondary that you were just talking about? Isn't that where that's coming from?
It is. It just looks more like it's in orange and black. So I mean, I saw it hanging on a peg in the locker room, so I didn't see it super up close to like see. Oh yeah, that's supposed to be red and that's supposed to be blue. But yeah, I mean, from the description, the jersey hook, that's what they do every year, and it always relates to the jersey that they actually release for the season.
I'd like to think somebody in the club is throwing a hissy fit of epic proportions that anything that is Dallas related is in the color orange. I mean, I can't assume. I mean, look, I'm going to hope and pray that nobody in the club greenlit for Adidas that they could sell anything Dallas branded in orange for all the obvious reasons, and that Adidas just did it universally or
I was
unilaterally.
sitting next to Dan Hunt during the press conference. I should have turned to him and said, "Hey, what's this all about?"
Yeah, you should have.
I didn't think about it. Okay.
Gosh, you got to tell me when you're sitting next to Dan Hunt so I can feed you questions. You may never get another second. After that, you may never get to sit next to Dan Hunt ever again, but we may.
Yeah, I'll be covering Texoma at that rate.
I think a lot of this national stuff is probably doesn't even get to an FC Dallas level for approval. Like these national product lines that are being put together by the league, it's not like, I think the only thing Dallas has any control over really is their kit or like stuff that they're producing just for themselves. These big, as Dan said, these lines where every team gets this particular hat related to their away jersey. I think once you design the jersey, they go, okay, that goes here, it goes on this hat, it goes on this jacket, like the two-way jacket, the same thing.
Yeah, but this
it's
has
like,
nothing to do with their current away jersey.
The hat does. That's what he was saying.
No, it's orange. It's not red.
Yeah, but that could just be, that it's embroidered in the wrong colors. Effectively, it's still that colorized logo. It's not burn themed, which we know the third jersey will be, that we know Footy Headlines has said the orange one would be. So having the FC Dallas logo rather than the burn logo wouldn't really make a ton of sense there.
I didn't like this episode of Kit Talk.
Because you didn't get the answers you wanted.
Yeah, this is not a good episode.
I did find out something interesting.
I'm only leaving 1 star in this episode, Buzz.
Are you tipping your driver at least? I did find out one thing interesting. The third jerseys. So we've worked on the assumption it's going to be every team gets one this season. It's actually half of the teams in the league gets one this season, half gets one next season.
I definitely had heard all of them from the beginning, but maybe it's been altered, or maybe that was bad info. So
interesting. Okay. Well,
we know Dallas is getting one. That's all we care about in the end, right?
In July.
Yeah.
Yes.
That we know for sure.
Yes.
Not in fucking April. But yeah, Cocktails and Cleats, Gina got up on the stage and said it. Heritage Collection, which was the same line as last year. July, we know that season ticket holders, that is their every game attendance reward is going to be that jersey specifically, and that's why they haven't been given a jersey yet. So,
and before we go, we will, as mentioned earlier in this episode, they did have their official kickoff event for the stadium project, which included Dan Hunt saying that this will be the world's finest, smallest soccer-specific stadium. Is that what he said? He said that we're going to have the
world's finest in Collin County.
No, he said world's finest, but then he defined it as smaller. Like he was trying to, this isn't like, we're not like going to try to compete with Old Trafford or Tottenham Stadium.
To be
or Wembley.
fair, it's in a bit better nick than Old Trafford anyway.
Probably, yeah, you're right. I'm not gonna. That's a rundown. I mean, Old Trafford currently is kind of like the final days of Texas Stadium. I've been to both of those places in their old age, and they're very similar vibes going on in terms of their state of condition. So that was going on. But I must admit, I was duly impressed with the project manager from the architecture firm, or maybe it was the construction firm, who literally rolled out with the, he just went with it. He said, look, we are essentially going to tear down and rebuild this around everybody while you guys go to games, and you're not even going to notice. And I thought that was very brave. And
We noticed.
Very, yes, very, very brave on his part to take that stance.
I think the best part from that was those golden sledgehammers they had. That was pretty cool. That was way better than the golden spades they had for the Hall of Fame construction.
Well, and because of the weather, they didn't get to do anything outside, so it was all inside. So they scrambled a whole bunch of people to come up and do a ceremonial ball kick.
So I don't know if they ended up doing it or not, but the plan was, and this was actually still up during the game. The PR staff told me this. Originally, there was going to be a big board of Toyota Stadium as it is now, and then behind it, the new stadium. And the players would kick the ball at that. The old stadium would fall down and violate the new stadium. So, yeah, I think that's why they had that kind of weird, awkward ball kick where it just looked like, Sebastian Lletget was trying to take off the mayor's head.
And lest us not be labeled as just kicking FC Dallas in the balls when they do something silly, we also now have to tip our cap to McKenny Chupacabras, who last week posted a photo of their new jerseys, which, by the way, are a cool design. It's a black jersey with the kind of light blue and white claw marks on the sides.
Yeah.
And I saw this small picture in my Twitter account of the shirt kind of on, I guess it's on a mannequin or something. And they've got the jersey sponsor there in that. And I thought, man, that
Tufts
jersey,
Brewing.
yeah, Tufts Brewing, which is a really cool new brewery in the McKinney area. You should go check it out. I was looking at this photo and I thought, what is going on with that shirt? Because like above the logo, the white logo, it looked like there was a piece of black electrical tape above it, and I couldn't figure out what that was. And I zoomed in, and lo and behold, not only was it a piece of tape, but it wasn't black tape. It was Scotch tape reflecting in the light, which was on the shirt holding up a paper cutout of the Tufts Brewery logo on the shirt. It wasn't actually on the shirt. It was a paper printout of the logo cut out and held with Scotch tape on the shirt. Now, that's some janky ass shit right there.
I think the best part for me was, their logo is kind of that interesting like shield shape with the curved sides. One side was cut absolutely immaculately. The other one, it clearly showed that the person cutting that piece of paper was very dominant with one hand over the other.
You were so excited to show off your new team jersey. You couldn't wait till you had the sponsor logo screen printed on the shirt.
Here's the thing that gets me. Like, they don't know someone with a cricket. Like, I mean, shit, I could have fired mine up and printed it for them.
Well, they must have seen the comments because at the beer reveal, they had them up posted without that on there. They took that down.
I'm sure Tufts probably turned around and says, if you're going to show a logo, you're going to do it properly.
Well, I just couldn't figure out why they didn't take the extra 13 seconds to just fold the Scotch tape over on itself and put it on the back of the piece of paper. Because if they had done that, we would have probably never known that they tried to show off a shirt with a paper sponsor logo on the front.
I think this just calls for a wider DFW soccer list.
Yeah, maybe. Now that we have, I guess that is part of the question.
Because then you could have the Dallas-Roma Open Cup fight that Buzz reported on years ago.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Speaking of which, Buzz, and this is 100% my fault. I admit this is my bad. I owe everybody an apology, but it dawned on me the other day that we have not updated the list to include anything from 2024.
Because it was such a wonderful event for you.
And I would like to officially open the door for submissions from the pod listener, the good curious, as to things that we should add to the list, the famous historical Dallas list for the year 2020, the season of 2024. Now, remember, this isn't just the fact that they had a bad season or whatever. These are like the self-owned moments that happened last season. Okay. So
it can be absolutely crazy bad luck too, or just weird, bizarre, hard to even predict or hard to even believe they were real. Screenwriters going to come up with it.
Just go and read the list for inspiration.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. If you kind of wonder what we're talking about, just go to thirddegree.net and scroll down to the curious history of the FC Dallas burn, and you'll see all 29 seasons or 28 seasons of the list there for yourself. It's quite remarkable. But now maybe we can start one for the Chupacabras.
We'll have to hurry up to do one for Mesquite Outlaws.
Yeah, clock's ticking on that team.
Very good. Okay. Anything else, boys? We've prattled on way too long.
Speaking of Mesquite, the MASL season finished. They had 4 wins. 3 of those came against Dallas sidekicks.
How many wins did Dallas end up with?
Oh, no idea.
Not very many. They're not very good either.
Goodness gracious. How do either one of those teams stay in business? I mean, I know Mesquite's going away. Isn't it?
Well, we think it is. It's not official. It's just there's a complicated story with who owns that team now and what it might mean in terms of going forward.
Okay.
So,
It's kind of like early days MLS. They had 2 owners come in and kind of keep it afloat.
yeah, basically, the owners of 2 other teams came in with a bunch of money to keep the team surviving for the season, and then also bought a whole bunch of their players or traded away a whole bunch of the players to some of the other teams in the league. So there wasn't a whole lot left for the Texans to have on their roster, and they really don't have an owner anymore. So I don't think it's going to survive the end of the season. And by the way, Dallas Sidekicks had 6 wins on the season, to answer your question.
That's nice to know. I don't think I've ever met anybody that's been to an Outlaws game, and
Me.
once. Okay. Good to meet. You've been to an Outlaws game.
Yeah, I went to one just to sort of see what it was about.
Oh, okay. And I don't think I currently know anybody that goes to Sidekicks games.
Been to one of those too.
Well, I've been to a Sidekicks game, but I don't know anybody that's been to one anytime recently.
I went 4 years ago. And Alan.
I saw you there 4 years ago.
Did you? Yeah.
Dan, have you been to a Sidekicks game recently?
That last
That
one.
was the last one.
Yeah, that was honestly the one and only. It's I like Sports and Allen. Sports and Allen is not at good times for me.
Yeah. All right. Well, very good.
Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by El Matador and the El Matador Watch Party for Atlanta versus FC Dallas. That's this weekend, April 5th, 6:30 p.m. at downtown Dallas at the Scarlet and Pumpernickel. Come on down. They got the entire second floor reserved, all the big TVs, full sound, bartender, amazing food. Typically plenty of street parking, lots of garages nearby. But of course, the Scarlet Pumpernickel is just 2 blocks from the Akron Street Dart Station. So come on down to the Scarlet Pumpernickel. Enjoy it in El Matador, supporting FC Dallas on the road at Atlanta United this weekend, 6:30 p.m.
All right, boys. Thank you very much. Dan, thank you. Buzz, thank you. And thank you, FC Dallas Curious Fan. Let's see how it goes at the Robot's Anus this weekend.
The Roborectum is open for business.
We'll talk to you next week on another episode of Third Degree, the podcast.
Shit, I miss my cue.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.